Mr. Relevant rolls on live, ESPN Wisconsin. Alex Strouf with you from the Gerber Law Offices, One Call Outsell Studio in downtown Milwaukee. Excited to be joined now by the heartbeat of ESPN Radio's Unsportsmanlike. It is the great Michelle Smallmon joining us courtesy of Travel Wisconsin. Smalls, NFL free agency in full swing, and you're putting up with Canny and Evan every morning. How's the week been for you? It's been flying for us here in Green Bay despite a lack of moves.
Well, Alex, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for the compliment. The heartbeat of ESPN Radio, the heartbeat of Unsportsmanlike. I'm going to use that to my advantage. Next time the guys give me trouble, I'm going to be like, "You can't mess with me. I'm the heartbeat." But yeah, no, this week has been absolutely flying by. The carousel has been moving, obviously, of players going to different places. Still waiting on a couple of key quarterback pieces to drop, namely Aaron Rodgers. I'm very curious to see where he's going to end up, as I'm sure a lot of people in Wisconsin are as well. But yeah, it's been a really exciting week. But you mentioned I still have to deal with Evan and Canty every day. So, that throws a wrench into things. Kidding. Love those guys. Are the best. But yeah, no, it's been really fun. And it's been really interesting to see where some of these players land.
So let's actually start with Aaron Rodgers because I did want to get into that with you. And we had Adam Schefter on this morning, Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, and he's like, "Yeah, I have. You can't predict Aaron Rodgers, right? The timeline is uncertain. We don't know. We think he wants to play. We're not certain he wants to play. He could be in Peru doing ayahuasca. He could be, I have no idea where he is, what he wants to do." This Pittsburgh Steelers thing seems to make the most sense for him, right? Seems like a good offense, a stable head coach, stable organization that always wins at least, 50% of their games, always in the playoff contention talks. The Giants have been doo-doo, lack of a better term, the last couple of years, right? Like that's not an ideal situation. So Pittsburgh seems to me to make the most sense. But then there's that curveball of, well, what if Minnesota doesn't think J.J. McCarthy is ready? So I'm not really sure, A, how long this is going to take, and B, where he ends up. As you try to parse through what makes sense for Rodgers and those teams, where have you landed at here as of Wednesday morning?
Well, it might be a fool's errand to try to figure out the mind of a self-proclaimed enigma, but let's try. Let's give it our best shot.
Do it.
So I'm with you when it comes to Pittsburgh, because if I'm putting myself in Aaron Rodgers' shoes, obviously these past two seasons with the Jets have been a disaster. And even though he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, will strut into Canton, no problem. You're playing football for a reason. And obviously he loves the game, but this is also a person who for the past couple of years has had to go into the darkness and contemplate retirement. He is very vocal about his interests outside of football. He has a life outside of football. So it's not just this love of the game that would keep him here. So I can only arrive at the conclusion that he wants to compete for a championship. He wants to win outside of Green Bay. He wants to further his legacy. Obviously, that's not going to happen with the New York. Why wouldn't he be running to Pittsburgh if that's on the table? As you mentioned, to play for one of, if not the steadiest organization in the NFL. You get to play for a Hall of Fame coach in Mike Tomlin. There's some weapons there. You've got a strong defense. You're going to likely have a winning season and or punch your tickets to the playoffs. And that's really all you can ask for if you're Aaron Rodgers, an opportunity to compete for a championship. But just like you mentioned, and we had Dan Graziano on the show today, and he threw that out there as well. Why would he be waiting? Yes, he likes to take his time. Yes, he likes to think things through. Yes, of course, he loves the drama and the attention, and he probably loves that he has options and he's holding this thing up. But what if he's waiting for Minnesota? What if he's trying to complete the full Brett Favre and he's looking at going back to a division he's familiar with a team that's pretty turnkey? You have offensive weapons, you have a strong defense, you have great coaching. If JJ McCarthy is not ready and they're looking for an option, Aaron Rodgers could be a pretty good one, despite his age and despite the fact that he won 5 games and had a QBR in the 40s last year. He could be a good one-year solution for them if they're not ready for JJ McCarthy or JJ McCarthy's not ready for them. But I also think about that locker room, and I think about how culture is so important to Minnesota, just like it is to Pittsburgh. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers parachuting in there is the answer, but it would make a lot of sense as to why the deal has not been done with him yet if he's waiting on Minnesota.
Yeah, you would not be able to convince me that time is not a flat circle had he ends up in Minnesota, just like Brett Favre did. That would just be, there's not words that describe how ridiculous it would be. It would be
I know, right?
so entertaining from an entertainment standpoint.
And,
Perfect. But no,
and the irony with him that for so long it was, I don't want to be the next Brett Favre. I don't want to be the next Brett Favre. For you to literally follow in his footsteps would be pretty ironic.
Be so good. Michelle Smallmon of ESPN Radios and Sportsmanlike with us here on ESPN Wisconsin. Michelle, for those that don't know, you're a St. Louis native, so obviously your Rams left you. Last offseason, you did your own bachelorette-esque version of finding your next NFL team. You landed on the Packers. Year one of being a Packers fan is in the books. In your own words, just tell me how it went, because as I mentioned to you before we started recording, I grew up in Green Bay. I'm a Packers fan through and through. I've been through this before. Year one for you was how was it?
Roller coaster. I would say overall, if I was going to give it a grade, I would give it an A because we're still in the honeymoon phase. And I can't tell you how refreshing it was to care again. And I know that sounds silly because we're sports fans, but for those who don't know the complete story about how the Rams were ripped from St. Louis, it was brutal. And for a long time, so many St. Louisans felt anger and apathy towards the NFL. And I, of course, for my job, watch every Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. And I look for storylines. There are certain players I would root for, but it's a very empty feeling to not have some sort of an emotional response to a game every week. And so for me to come in, choose the Packers, to get such a warm welcome from Packers fans, to get to go to Lambeau and experience that for myself, and to have a team that was a playoff team that was good, that you didn't know how it was going to play out, that was awesome for me to feel again. I know, again, that sounds silly, but the ending was not what I wanted. It was inconsistent. It was frustrating at times, glorious at times, but I would say the overarching theme was that I was thrilled to be a Packers fan. But now that we're on to year two, Alex, the expectations are different. I understand the standards in Green Bay. It's not good enough to just make the playoffs. We're talking title town, okay? And we need the Packers to keep pace with the other teams in the division.
Well said. Yeah, we're getting out of the honeymoon phase, I sense,
Yes.
which is great. That's growth. I like that. Now, you experience your first full off season, and we get through the first couple days of free agency. It's a corner. It's an offensive guard. Nothing too sexy from the Packers in terms of free agency, right? Didn't address receiver, didn't address edge. Now, where are we at in terms of confidence entering the draft and next season, as you don't see any, crazy moves happening? There's no Myles Garrett in town. There's no Max Crosby in town. No Devontae Adams. Where are we in terms of confidence as we approach the draft and next year?
So I do like some of the moves that the Packers made. I love that they went out there and got Aaron Banks and gave Jordan Love some more protection, because obviously part of the inconsistency that we saw from him this past year was that he's injured. So give him some more protection. I also like the addition of Nate Hobbs at corner, but I was praying for DK Metcalf, Alex. I don't know where you fell as far as which receiver you liked, but as soon as I heard that DK Metcalf could be an option, I was like, imagine him on that Green Bay offense. Imagine what Matt LaFleur could dial up with DK Metcalf and the different looks that could give Jordan Love. Oh, I was really hoping that he would land there. But maybe they'll address that in the draft. I'm really looking forward to see where they go in the draft, but I was a little bummed out that they didn't go out there and take a big swing when it came to receiver, because I'm looking around at the division and there's some question marks and a very highly and hotly contested NFC North. So even though the Lions are coming back healthy, and I would be shocked if they had anywhere near the amount of injuries they had last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you expect the Lions to still be the class of the division. We don't know what it's going to be like after losing two coordinators. We saw it with Philadelphia 2 years ago when they lost Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, and they had to recalibrate. So you don't know how that's going to impact the Lions losing Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. I don't know if the Vikings are going to be as formidable, because who's going to be their quarterback? Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be JJ McCarthy? While we assume that Kevin O'Connell is going to be able to extract that magic out of JJ McCarthy the same way that he did Sam Darnold and, of course, Kirk Cousins, it's not a guarantee. Also, the past couple seasons, the Vikings have won a lot of close games. Is that a bubble that could burst? And I hate to say this to you, but I'm a little nervous about what the Bears are doing. I'm a little nervous about the Bears. They go out and get the hot guy on the block when it came to head coaching vacancies, and Ben Johnson. We obviously know his creativity when it comes to the offense. Caleb Williams publicly campaigns for him, and in that same breath says, I want someone to challenge me and somebody to make better. So he seems committed to improving things that he needs to improve upon, like holding the ball too long. And then they go out there and they make a lot of aggressive moves, fortifying both lines, which is so smart. It's smart football decisions. Like, what? We don't expect that from the Chicago Bears. And there's always a team that goes from worst to first, and not suggesting that the Bears are going to be the top of the division, but I'm just saying, from where I sit as a Packers fan, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of questions. And are we, as the Green Bay Packers, doing everything we can to make sure that we're taking advantage of where we sit in the division?
Yeah, welcome to the fandom. I mean, the good news for you is I will give you this tip as you enter year two. The Bears always find a way to screw it up. All
Okay,
right.
good.
Like, I hear you because I did this last year with them. It's like, oh, Caleb Williams is walking into the safest situation or
Yes.
the first overall pick ever has, and they find a way to screw it up. They're doing the right things. They've won the offseason each of the last 3 years. We'll see if it finally translates for them. Minnesota, it's the quarterback that I'm wondering, okay, is McCarthy going to be their guy? Will it be a Rodgers? Will it be somebody else? They could still be an 11, 12 win team. And then, yeah, Detroit is still the favorite in the North. So we will see. But it's again looking like it's going to be the most competitive division in football, but we'll be all right. Michelle Smallmon on Sportsmanlike with us for just a few more minutes. So as we approach the draft, have we started the campaign for Michelle Smallmon to announce a pick? We need to get you up there in like round 6 or 7, right? On day 3, get you up there, announce a pick. Have we started that campaign yet?
I haven't even thought that. That has not even been an idea for me. But now I'm very excited about that, and we should start the campaign. Can you imagine? That would be beyond a bucket list item. That would be insane. I would love to do that.
The campaign begins now, and you can get to the draft with Michelle Smallmon. Go to travelwisconsin.com/draft by the end of the month. March 31st, your deadline. You can come, you and a guest come to Wisconsin. You're going to stay in Milwaukee. We're going to bus you up to Green Bay. You're going to experience the draft. Michelle, Evan, Canty will be there on Sportsmanlike. We'll be live in Green Bay. Travelwisconsin.com/draft. You're looking forward to getting back. I hope the weather holds out at the end of April. Should be good, I think.
It should be good, but either way, whether good or bad, we're going to have an amazing time in Wisconsin and, of course, in Green Bay. I cannot wait to go back there. It's one of those places better than anybody growing up there, that the second you come into town, and again, I took a bus there from Milwaukee when I went to the game this past season. And the second you step off that bus, there's just this buzz and this excitement and this energy in the air. You know that you're walking onto hallowed ground, hallowed football ground, and it's just such a special place. And for so many people who maybe haven't been to Lambeau or haven't been to Green Bay for a game, for them to get to come to the draft and experience it, I think it's going to be awesome.
Can't miss out. Travelwisconsin.com/draft. Get that in before the end of the month. Michelle Smallmon from Unsportsmanlike, beginning at 5 a.m. Central on ESPN Wisconsin. Great catching up with you. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely, Alex. Thanks for having me.